And we're hearing from Canto 5, Chapter 8, text number 11. And it says, due to attachment for the deer, Maharaj Bharata lay down with it, walked about with it, bathed with it, and even ate with it. Thus his heart became bound to the deer in affection. Well, that means that he's not he's fallen in love with the deer, and he's going to forget about Krishna consciousness, and ultimately he'll become a deer in his next life. When Maharaj Bharata wanted to enter the forest to collect kusa grass, flowers, wood, leaves, fruits, roots, and water, he would fear that dogs, jackals, tigers, and other ferocious animals might kill the deer. He would therefore always take the deer with him when entering the forest. Purport: how Maharaj Bharata increased his affection for the deer is described herein. Even such an exalted personality as Bharat Maharaj, who had attained loving affection for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fell down from his position due to his affection for some animal. Consequently, as will be seen, he had to accept the body of a deer in his next life. Next life. Since this was the case with Bharat Maharaja, what can we say of those who are not advanced in spiritual life, but who become attached to cats and dogs? Haribol. I know people like that, devotees like that. Due to their affection for their cats and dogs, they have to take the same bodily forms in the next life unless they clearly increase their affection and love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless we increase our faith in the Supreme Lord, we shall be attracted to many other things. That is the cause of our material bondage. Yeah, you get so enamored by the cats and dogs, you forget about Krishna. And you're overwhelmed by caring for the cat or the dog only because they seem to be surrendered unto you. But when the dog is licking the face of its master, the master thinks, oh, just see how much he loves me. He's licking my face. But the dog is thinking, oh, how good you taste. One day I shall eat you also. Yeah, because dogs are carnivorous animals. So if they get the taste of the human being, their master, they will one day eat the master. Of course, nobody knows, nobody even thinks about these things. And they just go on merrily loving the dog instead of loving Krishna. Text 13. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive, Maharaja Bharata, due to its childish behavior. Maharaja Bharata would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or when sleeping on his chest. In this way, he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Maharaj Bharata left his home, wife, children, kingdom, and everything else to advance his spiritual life in the forest. But again, he fell victim to material affection due to his attachment to an insignificant pet deer. What then was the use of his renouncing his family? One who is serious in advancing in his spiritual life should be very cautious not to become attached to anything but Krishna. Sometimes, in order to preach, we have to accept many material activities, but we should remember that everything is for Krishna. If we remember this, there is no chance of our being victimized by material activities, such as buying a cat or a dog and then taking care of them. Text 14. When Maharaj Bharata was actually worshiping the Lord or was engaged in some ritualistic ceremony, although his activities were unfinished, he would still, at intervals, get up and see where the deer was. In this way, he would look for it, and when he could see that the deer was comfortably situated, his mind and heart would be very satisfied, and he would bestow his blessings upon the deer, saying, "My dear calf, may you be happy in all respects." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Because his attraction for the deer was so intense, Bharata Maharaj could not concentrate upon worshiping the Lord or performing his ritualistic ceremonies. Even though he was engaged in worshiping the deity, his mind was restless due to his inordinate affection. While trying to meditate, he would simply think of the deer, wondering where it had gone. In other words, if one's mind is distracted from worship, a mere show of worship will not be of any benefit. The fact that Bharat Maharaja had to get up at intervals to look for the deer was simply a sign that he had fallen down from the spiritual platform. Yeah, he's thinking almost 24 hours a day of the deer and not Krishna. Text 15. If Bharat Maharaja sometimes could not see the deer, his mind would be very agitated. He would become like a miser who, having obtained some riches, had lost them and had then become very unhappy. When the deer was gone, he would be filled with anxiety and would lament due to separation. Thus, he would become illusioned and speak as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. If a poor man loses some money or gold, he at once becomes very agitated. Similarly, The mind of Maharaj Bharata would become agitated when he did not see the deer. This is an example of how our attachment can be transferred. If our attachment is transferred to the Lord's service, we progress. Srila Rupa Goswami prayed to the Lord that he would be as naturally attracted to the Lord's service as young men and young women are naturally attracted to each other. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited such attachment to the Lord when he jumped into the ocean or cried at night in separation. However, if our attachment is diverted to material things instead of the Lord, we will fall down from the spiritual platform. Text 16. Bharat Maharaja would think, alas, the deer is now helpless. I am now very unfortunate. And my mind is like a cunning hunter, for it is always filled with cheating propensities and cruelty. The deer has put its faith in me, just as a good man who has a natural interest in good behavior forgets the misbehavior of a cunning friend and puts his faith in him. Although I have proved faithless, I have proved faithless, will this deer return and place its faith in me? Now he's going crazy. He's forgetting everything about his Krishna consciousness and just overwhelmed by his attachment to the attachment to the deer. Purport: Bharata Maharaj was very noble and exalted, and therefore, when the deer was absent from him, he thought himself unworthy to give it protection. Due to his attachment for the animal, he thought that the animal was as noble and exalted as he himself was. According to the logic of Atmavan Manyate Jagat, everyone thinks of others according to his own position. Therefore, Maharaj Bharata felt that the deer had left him due to his negligence, and that due to the animal's noble heart, it would again return. Basically, he's going crazy. Text 17. Alas, it is possible that I shall again see this animal protected by the Lord and fearless of tigers and other animals. Shall I again see him wandering in the garden eating soft grass? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Bharata thought that the animal was disappointed in his protection and had left him for the protection of a demigod. Regardless, he ardently desired to see the animal again within his ashrama, eating the soft grass and not fearing tigers and other animals. Maharaja Bharata could think only of the deer and how the animal could be protected from all kinds of, all kinds of inauspicious things. From the materialistic point of view, such kind thoughts may be very laudable, maybe many very uh, laudable means something that you do and people appreciate. But from the spiritual point of view, the king was actually falling from his exalted spiritual position and unnecessarily becoming attached to an animal, thus degrading himself. He would have to accept an animal body. Well, animals are not clean. They're unclean, especially dogs and cats. And people sometimes will let the dog and cat live with them in the house. Sometimes when the main man of the house is eating, he'll the dog will come close to him and he'll give him some morsel of food that he's eating and touch pet the dog. Of course, all that is really unclean uh, types of so-called love of the dog. The dog is very unclean. The dog is a carnivorous animal. It's not like the cow. A cow is not carnivorous. It's not going around trying to kill other animals and eat them. But the dog is a carnivorous animal, and it's happened many times in different places that sometimes the master of the house will uh, leave the dog with their baby or a young child and go somewhere. And when they come back, they see that the dog killed the child. Not every time, but it's happened. But why? Because a dog is a carnivorous animal. It eats flesh. It's not like the cow. The cow is not a carnivorous animal. It doesn't eat flesh. It eats grass. So it's not going to kill a human baby. But a dog can, in certain circumstances, kill a young child or a baby and eat it. So why don't you look that up to see if dogs have killed a child when the dog is alone with the baby or a child. I do not know, but the deer might have been eaten by a wolf or a dog, or by the boars that flock together, or the tiger who travels alone. Purport: tigers never wander in the forest in flocks. Each tiger wanders alone, but forest boars keep together. Similarly, hogs, wolves, and dogs also do the same. Thus, Maharaj Bharata thought that the deer had been killed by some of the many ferocious animals within the forest. What does it say?
Yeah, there are cases even in more recently, like 2022 and 2023. Once in 2022, a toddler in Texas was killed by a pair of dogs owned by the family. And
A
then
toddler.
a toddler, mostly under like very young kids, like under 5. And then 2023, a 7-month-old baby in Florida was killed by a family dog.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. So in May 2025, a 1 month girl in Queens, New York, was killed by the family's 6 week old German Shepherd dog, like like pit bull, like a bulldog, and it like is 6 week, and it was while the parents slept. The dog gnawed off a significant portion of the infant's face. In May 2024, a 6 week old boy in Knoxville, Tennessee, died after being attacked by the family's 8-year-old husky while sleeping in his crib. The attack was described as unprovoked, according to according to some news. In December 2024, a 5-year-old girl in Covina, California, was fatally attacked by her family's Rottweiler and Rottweiler mix in the backyard. The girl had lived with the dogs her entire life without prior incident. In July 2025, a 1-year-old girl in, in Tuscarawas County, Ohio, died after being attacked by a pit bull. Deputies found the girl with bites in her face and throat. In February 25, February 2025, a newborn baby in Uttar Pradesh, India, who was declared dead by a hospital, was later discovered to have had its head eaten by dogs after the family allegedly abandoned the body.
Terrible. Dog is a carnivorous animal. It means they eat flesh. And if you leave your child alone, like say a baby or a very small child alone with the dog, it's very possible that the dog will kill the child and eat it. Of course, some people say, "Well, are you crazy? The dog is man's best friend." It's not the best friend of mankind. It is a carnivorous animal. It eats flesh. And sometimes, if you leave your child alone with the dog will kill the child and eat it. So we have to be very, very careful with dogs. That's why, in general, Indians are afraid of dogs. Now, there are some that have dogs, but in general, Indians are afraid of dogs. Is that right?
Generally, Indians don't, but lately it has been changing,
Yeah.
particularly in cities. Yeah.
But my dad's grandparents. Oh no, not grandparents. My dad's like parents. They they always have like stick to chase the dog away.
Yes. Yeah.
It's because they're farmers.
Ah, okay. Okay. Well, Americans think the dog is man's best friend, but actually, yeah, there are some dogs that do what one would think good things. But basically, a dog is a carnivorous animal. It eats flesh. So, therefore, we cannot really trust a dog. And they're unclean also. Their stool, and urine are contaminating. If you're going to have a pet, you should get a cow because cows are not, let's say, contaminating like the dog. The poop and pee of the dog is contaminating. The poop and pee of a cow is not contaminating. So nowadays, people like to buy very small cows or very small cows and keep them as pets, but they're very expensive. Why? Well, Mr. Modi, he has Ponguru cows. They're very, very small. And he keeps them as pets. The Ponguru cow now has become very expensive because it's a miniature cow and very, very cute and can run around in the house and become acclimated to, only pooping and peeing in special places and is kept in the house often. Uh, it's uh, becoming a popular thing to have a Ponguru cow in the house.
Which cow, Maharaj?
What's that?
Which cow?
Ponguru.
Ponganuru.
It's a special breed of Indian cow, and they're very, very cute and very, very, let's say, lovable animal. Of course, it's still an animal, but if you're going to get a cow, you should get a Ponguru cow. Okay, text number 19. Alas, when the sun rises, all auspicious things begin. Unfortunately, they have not begun for me. The sun god is the Vedas personified, but I am bereft of all Vedic principles. That sun god is now setting, yet the poor animal who trusted in me since its mother died has not returned. Now you see what's happening is that the devotee is beginning to develop uh, what you would call insane behavior. In the Brahma Samhita 552, the sun is described as the eye of the Supreme Personality of God. Yes, Chakshur Esha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Sunamurti Sateja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Mali Purishantam Hambajami. As the sun arises, one should chant the Vedic mantra beginning with the Gayatri. The sun is the symbolic representation of the eyes of the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Bharata lamented that although the sun was going to set, due to the poor animal's absence, he could not find anything auspicious. Bharata Maharaj considered himself most unfortunate, for due to the animal's absence, there was nothing auspicious for him in the presence of the sun. Well, what's happening now is because of his unnecessary attachment to the deer, he's going crazy. Text 20. That deer is exactly like a prince. When will it return? When will it again display its personal activities, which are so pleasing? When will it again pacify a wounded heart like mine? I certainly must have no pious assets, otherwise the deer would have returned by now. Well, what's happening is the the master of the deer is going crazy, and he's going to become delirious with strong affection of this deer and feelings that he has failed protecting the deer. Purport: out of strong affection, the king accepted the small deer as if it were a prince. This is called moha. Moha means illusion. Due to his anxiety over the deer's absence, the king addressed the animal as though it were his son. Out of affection, anyone can be addressed as anything. Text 21. Alas, the small deer, while playing with me and seeing me, feigning meditation with closed eyes, would circumambulate me due to anger arising from love, and it would fearfully touch me with the points of its soft horns, which felt like the drops of water. Now, King Bharata considers his meditation false. While engaged in meditation, he was actually thinking of his deer. Yeah, there you go. That's the problem with having animals. And he would feel great pleasure when the animal pricked him with the points of its horns. Feigning meditation, the king would actually think of the animal, and this was but a sign of his downfall. Instead of meditating on Krishna, he meditates on the deer. That means he's going crazy. 622. When I placed all the sacrificial ingredients on the kusha grass, the deer, when playing, would touch the grass with its teeth and thus pollute it. When I chastised the deer by pushing it away, it would immediately become fearful and sit down motionless, exactly like the son of a saintly person. Thus, it would stop its play. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Bharata Maharaj was constantly thinking of the activities of the deer, forgetting that such meditation and diversion of attention was killing his progress in spiritual achievement. There it is. That's a fact. After speaking like a madman in this way, Maharaj Bharata got up and went outside. Seeing the footprints of the deer on the ground, he praised the footprints out of love, saying, "Oh, unfortunate Bharata, your austerities and penances are very insignificant compared to the penance and austerity undergone by this earth planet. Due to the earth's severe penances, the footprints of this deer, which are all small, beautiful, most auspicious, and soft, are imprinted on the surface of this fortunate planet. This series of footprints show a person like me, who am bereaved due to the loss of the deer, how the animal has passed through the forest and how I I can regain my lost wealth. By these footprints, this land has become a proper place for brahmanas who desire heavenly planets or liberation to execute sacrifice, sacrifices to the demigods. Now, Bharat Maharaj has become crazy, completely bewildered by this deer, and is unable to understand that he is so attached to the deer that his uh, duty to being a devotee is being compromised, and he's losing any attraction to serving Krishna. Purport. It is said that when a person becomes overly involved in loving affairs, he forgets himself as well as others, and he forgets how to act and how to speak. It is said that once when a man's son was blind since birth, the father, out of staunch affection for the child, named him Padmalochana. That means one who has beautiful eyes, or lotus eyed. This is a situation arising from blind love. Bharata Maharaj gradually fell into this condition due to his material love for the deer. It is said in the Smriti Shastra, Yasmin Dese Mriga Krishnas Tasmin Dharman Evodata. That tract of land wherein the footprints of a black deer can be seen is to be understood as suitable place to execute religious rituals. That is, of course, an illusory uh, statement showing how much the Bharat Maharaj had become enamored by the deer. Text 24. Maharaj Bharata continued to speak like a madman. He's going crazy. Seeing above his head the dark marks on the rising moon, which resembled a deer. He said, "Can it be that the moon, who is so kind to an unhappy man, might also be kind upon my deer, knowing that it has strayed from home and has become motherless? This moon has given the deer shelter near itself just to protect it from the fearful attacks of a lion." So now he's delusional, completely delusional. After perceiving the moonshine, Maharaj Bharata continued speaking like a crazy person. Yeah, he's going crazy because of his inordinate love, or so called love, of the deer. He said, "The deer's son was so submissive and dear to me that due to its separation, I am feeling separation from my own son. Due to the burning fever of this separation, I am suffering as if inflamed by a forest fire. My heart, which is like the lily of the land, is now burning. See me so distressed. The moon is certainly splashing its shining nectar upon me, just as a friend throws water on another friend who has a high fever. In this way, the moon is bringing me happiness." And now he's going completely crazy and just imagining things. Purport: according to Ayurvedic treatment, it is said that if one has a high fever, someone should splash him with water. After gargling this water in this way, the fever subsides, although Bharat Maharaja was very aggrieved due to the separation of his so-called son, the deer. He thought that the moon was splashing gargled water on him and from its mouth, and that this water would subdue his high fever, which was raging due to the separation from the deer. Translation, the text 26 translation. Sukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear king, in this way, Bharata Maharaja was overwhelmed by an uncontrollable desire, which was manifest in the form of the deer. Due to the fruitive results of his past deeds, he fell down from mystic yoga, austerity, and worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If it were not due to his past fruitive activity, how could he have been attracted to the deer after giving up the association of his own son and family, considering them stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual life?" Yeah, he gives up one set of stumbling blocks to his becoming Krishna conscious, and now has accepted another stumbling block, attachment to the deer, to distract his mind from Krishna. How could he show such uncontrollable affection for a deer? This was definitely due to his past karma. The king was so engrossed in petting and maintaining the deer that he fell down from his spiritual activities. In due course of time, insurmountable death, which is compared to a venomous snake that enters the hole created by a mouse, situated itself before him. Yeah, the mice make these underground uh, uh, underground uh, they make holes in the ground and to live there and have protection. But a venomous snake will enter the hole of the mouse and eat the mouse and live in the so-called house of the mouse. So that's why it says here, in due course of time, insurmountable death, which is compared to a venomous snake that enters the hole created by a mouse, situated itself before him. Purport. As will be seen by later verses, Bharat Maharaja, at the time of death, would be forced to accept the body of a deer due to his attraction for the deer. In this regard, a question may be raised. How can a devotee be affected by his past misconduct and vicious activities? In Brahma Samhita 554, it is said, Karmani nirdhati kintu chapakti bhajam. For those engaged in devotional service, bhakti bhajana, the results of past deeds are indemnified. In other words, they are taken away. According to this, Bharat Maharaja could not be punished for his past misdeeds. The conclusion must be that Maharaj Bharata purposefully became over addicted to the deer and neglected his spiritual advancement. To immediately rectify this mistake, for a short time he was awarded the body of a deer. This was just to increase his desire for mature devotional service. Although Bharat Maharaja was awarded the body of an animal, he did not forget what had previously happened due to his purposeful mistake. He was very anxious to get out of his dear body, and this indicates that his affection for devotional service was intensified. So much so that he was quickly to attain perfection in a Brahmana body in the next life. It is with this conviction that we declare in our Back to Godhead magazine that devotees like the Goswamis living in Vrindavana who purposely commit some sinful activity are born in a body of dogs, monkeys, and tortoises. That's why there's so many monkeys and dogs in the Holy Dham. And the dogs, you can hear them fighting all night long and screaming. And the monkeys, of course, completely nonsense. They just do nonsense all day long. So there are many dogs, monkeys, and tortoises in the Holy Land. And those monkeys, dogs, and tortoises in the Holy Land are previous the devotees who misbehaved, and therefore they are obliged to take the forms of dogs and hogs, dogs and monkeys and tortoises in their next life and become gradually purified of their mistakes. Therefore, we should always be very, very careful of not hurting any of the dogs, monkeys, and tortoises in the Holy Land. Thus, they take on these lower life forms for a short while, and after they give up those animal bodies, they are again promoted to the spiritual world. So when we go to holy places like Vrindavan, and we see these dogs and we see monkeys and so forth, we should be very careful not to uh, hurt them in any way. They are human beings who have committed offenses in previous lives, but uh, to compensate for their offenses, they're taking a birth in the holy, uh, uh, you know, holy places of pilgrimage to get purified and come back again to the human form of life and then eventually go back to Godhead. So we have to be very careful when we go to holy places about the animals that are walking around and not in any way hurt them or make them, let's say, victims of our uh, uh, desire to torture them. We should be very careful and respectful of the animals in the holy dom. And it says here that it is with this conviction that we declare in our Back to Godhead magazine that the devotees, like the Goswamis living in Vrindavan, who purposely commit some sinful activity, are born in the bodies of dogs, monkeys, and tortoises in that holy land. Thus, they take on these lower life forms for a short while. And after they give up those animal bodies, they are again promoted to the spiritual world. Such punishment is only for a short period, and it is not due to past karma. It may appear to be due to past karma, but it is offered to rectify the devotee and bring him to pure devotional service. So we have to be very careful in the holy dom not to in any way hurt the animals there, because the animals there are actual devotees who committed some sinful acts, and therefore they have to have a period of having a body of an animal and then getting purified and then going back to Godhead. So we should be very respectful of the animals in the holy dom and not in any way hurt them. Okay, text number 27. At the time of death, the king saw that the deer was sitting by his side, exactly like his own son, and was lamenting his death. Actually, the mind of the king was absorbed in the body of the deer. Wow. And consequently, like those bereft of Krishna consciousness, meaning people who have forgotten Krishna, he left the material, the world, the deer and his material body, and acquired the body of a, guess what? A deer in his next life. However, there was one advantage. Although he lost his human body and received the body of a deer, he did not forget the incidents of his past life. So he's not a dumb deer. Because he engaged in devotional service, but he made some mistakes. Uh, he is given the opportunity of remembering his sojourn as a deer, so that once his period of being a deer is over and he comes back to the human form of life, he doesn't make the mistakes that he made as he did before, because he can remember what happened to him. Purport. There was a difference between Bharat Maharaj's acquiring a deer body and others acquiring different bodies, according to their mental condition at the time of death. After death, others forget everything that has happened in their past lives. But Bharat Maharaja did not forget. According to Bhagavad Gita, Yam Yam Vapi Swaram Bhavam Yajat Ante Kalivaram Tam Tamivaiti Kuntriya Sadatad Bhava Bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Bhagavad Gita 8.6. After quitting his body, a person gets another body according to his mental condition at the time of death. At death, a person always thinks of that subject matter in which he has been engrossed during his life. According to this law, wow, it's a law of nature. Because Bharata Maharaj was always thinking of the deer and forgetting his worship of the Supreme Lord, he acquired the body of a deer. However, due to his having been elevated to the topmost platform of devotional service, he did not forget the incidents of his past life. This special benediction, in other words, now he's a deer because he was meditating on a deer at the moment of death. But because he was previously engaged in very nice devotional service, even though he became attached to the deer and overwhelmed by meditating on the deer all the time instead of meditating on Krishna, he's given an opportunity in his next life in the body of the deer to remember all those mistakes that he's made and rectify himself so that he can take birth again as a human being and finish off his devotional service. Go back to that. That's why it says, due to his having been elevated to the topmost platform of devotional service, he did not forget the incidents of his past life. This special benediction saved him from further deterioration due to his past activities in devotional service. He became determined to finish his devotional service, even in the body of a deer. So he has the body of a deer, but he can remember being a human being. It is therefore said in this verse, Mritam, although he has died, Anu, afterwards, Na Mrita, Janmanas Matir, Itaravat. he did not forget the incidents of his past life as others forget them. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Karmani nirdhati kintu bhakti bhajam. Bhakti, uh, the it is proved herein that due to the grace of the Supreme Lord, a devotee is never vanquished. Due to his willful neglect of devotional service, a devotee may be punished for a short time, but he again revives his devotional service and returns home back to Godhead. Okay, so that's why it's very good to become a devotee and be engaged in devotional service. Anything you do in devotional service becomes a eternal asset that can never be taken away from you. And therefore, uh, due to the grace of the Supreme Lord, a devotee is never vanquished. In other words, never defeated by becoming forgetful of the Lord. Due to his willful neglect of devotional service, a devotee may be punished for a short time, but he again revives his devotional service and returns home back to Godhead. Okay? So the devotee may have to suffer for some uh, period of time because of his forgetting Krishna consciousness, but he will revive his devotional service eventually and then become qualified to go back to God. Text 28. Although in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaja, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. Consequently, his past and present life, he constantly repented his activities and speaking in the following way. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is a special concession for a devotee, even if he attains the body that is non-human, like a deer, for example. By the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he advances further in devotional service, whether by remembering his past life or by natural growth. It is not easy for a common man to remember the activities of his past life, but Bharat Maharaj could remember his past activities due to his great sacrifices and engagement in devotional service. Okay, well, that is our takeaway for today. If you become a devotee and become sidetracked by attachment to an animal or any mundane thing, and forget your dedication to the Lord and your steady devotional service, when you die, you actually can remember the service that you did, and you'll be given another chance to make spiritual advancement by having a suitable body. So that, and why? Because whatever you've done for Krishna consciousness in previous life, it is an eternal asset that cannot be taken away from you. So therefore, whatever you left off in the previous life, you begin from the point you left off in the next life to try and make more Krishna conscious advancement. That means that you can never be a loser in Krishna consciousness. Why? Because whatever you do for Krishna, in this life becomes an eternal asset. And in the next life, you begin from the point where you left off, excuse me, previously. Okay, text 29. In the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj began to lament, what misfortune I have fallen from the path of the self-realized. I gave up my real sons, wife, and home to advance in spiritual life, and I took shelter in a solitary holy place in the forest. I became self-controlled and self-realized, and I engaged constantly in devotional service, hearing, thinking, chanting, worshiping, and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. I was successful in my attempt, so much so that my mind was always absorbed in devotional service. However, due to my personal foolishness, my mind again became attached, this time to a deer. Now I have obtained the body of a deer and have fallen far from my devotional practices. Well, that is a lamentation of a devotee who has fallen down due to attachment to a mundane animal. Even after being so advanced in Krishna consciousness, it is possible that the devotee falls down due to unnecessary attachment to something mundane, like a deer. And therefore, the devotee has to undergo some remedial uh, activity to purify himself and come back again to the human form of body and continue to make continue to engage in devotional service. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Due to his stringent execution of devotional service, Maharaj Bharata could remember the activities of his past life and how he was raised to the spiritual platform. Now he has a body of a deer, but he's remembering who he was in a previous lifetime. Due to his foolishness, he became attached to an insignificant deer and thus fell down and had to accept the body of a deer. This is significant for every devotee. Wow, it's a fact. Every devotee should wake up and listen to this. If we misuse our position and think that we are fully engaged in devotional service and can do whatever we like, we have to suffer like Bharata Maharaja and be condemned to accept the type of body that impairs, or in other words, destroys our devotional service. Yeah, so we get the body of a deer or a dog. That's even worse. Only the human form is able to execute devotional service. But if we voluntarily give this up for sense gratification, we certainly have to be punished. This punishment is not exactly like that endured by an ordinary materialistic person. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, a devotee is punished in such a way that his eagerness to attain the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva is increased. By his intense desire, he returns home in the next lifetime. Devotional service is very completely described here. Tad anushravana manana sankirtanardanam nushmar an abhiyogena. The constant hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord is recommended in Bhagavad Gita. Satatam Kirtayan Tumam Yatantascha Jitavata. Those who have taken to Krishna consciousness should be very careful that not a single moment is wasted and that not a single moment is spent without chanting and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his activities. There it is, my dear devotees. That is the ultimate statement that we should meditate on. By his own actions and by the actions of his devotees, Krishna teaches us how to become cautious in devotional service. In other words, how to become very careful in devotional service. Through the medium of Harivilas Maharaj, Krishna teaches us that we must be careful in the discharge of devotional service. If we want to keep our minds completely fixed without deviation, we must engage them in devotional service full time. Okay, what does that practically mean? Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra every day, at least 16 good rounds, but that is the minimum. There is no maximum. So, devotees who are very determined to go back to Godhead, they will chant all day long. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that their mind does not become what you would call diverted to mundane things like wanting to have a deer or wanting to have an animal like a dog and wasting half of our life taking care of the dog or the deer or whatever, or the animal pet. As far as the members of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness are concerned, they have sacrificed everything to push on this Krishna consciousness movement. Yet, they must take a lesson from the life of Bharivilas Maharaj to be very cautious and to see that not a single moment is wasted in frivolous talk, sleep, or voracious eating. Eating is not prohibited, but if we eat voraciously, we shall certainly sleep more than required. Sense gratification ensues, and we may be degraded to a lower life form. In that way, our spiritual progress may be checked at least for the time being. The best course is to take the advice of Sri Rupa Goswami, Avyarta Kalatvam. That means to use every second in the service of the Lord. We should see that every moment of our life is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is our takeaway for today. That is, we should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. All right? That is our takeaway for today. And it's a very good takeaway because it takes us away from Maya and it takes us back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. And what is that? Avyarta Kalatvam. What does that mean? We should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. So this is our takeaway for today, my dear devotees. Avyarta kalatmam. We should use every second of our life engaged in devotional service and remembering Krishna and serving Krishna, and hopefully developing love and devotion for Krishna. That is the real purpose of human life. Human life is not meant for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals. We have to control our eating, sleeping, mating, and defending to have time to be engaged in devotional service, always remembering, serving, and developing love and devotion for Krishna. That is our real vocation in life. Always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna, always being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, and spreading the glories of the Lord by preaching Krishna consciousness. Then we will develop the qualification to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death and go back to Krishna in our next life. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, we'll stop there today. Are there any questions or comments, my dear devotees? Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
And Mataji.
Hare Bol Prabhu. I have a question. You mentioned that at the time of death, we get a body according to what we are thinking, according to how our consciousness is. Doesn't the Yamdutas?
There are more criterions, though.
Yeah, I was a little confused about that. That's why I'm asking you this. So, don't the Yamadutas have some hand in forcing us to take the next body according to our karma as well? Thanks.
As a genuine devotee, we try to engage in akarma, activities that do not produce karma, but are liberating, such as always being engaged in devotional service with love and devotion for the Lord. Now you are not committing any karma because you're completely dedicated to serving Krishna. That is the life of a real devotee. The real devotee does not engage in karmic activities. The devotee engages in acts of devotion and love, loving service for the Lord Krishna. Now he is liberated from the entrapment of karma and is engaged in akarma, activities that do not engender karma, such as chanting Hare Krishna, such as eating only Krishna prasadam, such as hearing lectures given by genuine devotees, such as going out on Harinam Sankirtan and preaching the glories of the Lord. So we can we can engage in activities 24 hours a day that keeps our mind and senses focused on Krishna. That is called Krishna consciousness. Then we are karma free. We're not creating any more karmic debts because we are not engaged in sense gratification anymore or forgetfulness of Krishna. Everything depends on what we are thinking and doing. not simply thinking, but thinking and doing. So if we're always thinking of Krishna and always engaged in practical devotional service, then we have a spiritual life. If we're only thinking but not engaged in devotional service, that is not perfect. That's good, but not perfect. Perfect is thinking of Krishna and acting in Krishna consciousness. Now you're on the guaranteed track to go back to Godhead. Okay, so I think we'll stop there. And our takeaway for today: the best course is to take the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami of Yartha Kalatvam. We should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. It's a very, very important takeaway for today. And this verse and this statement of Yartha Kalatvam means we should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for rendering of devotional service and nothing else. In other words, no vacations, no nonsense, no associating with unholy people, no eating unholy things, no engaged in mundane activities, always engaged in Krishna consciousness, always engaged in associating with genuine devotees who can help us if we begin to slip on the slippery slope of Maya. So the devotee will help us to regain our determination to always be 24 hours a day Krishna conscious. And therefore it says, we should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. That is our takeaway for today, or as summarized in Sanskrit, of Yartha Kalatvam, using every moment of our lives in rendering devotional service and nothing else. Hare Krishna. I rest my comments. This is the ultimate wisdom that we can benefit from. And it's given in a few sentences. The best course is to take the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami, Avyartha Kalatvam. We should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We should have a celebration today because we've heard such auspicious things today to help us become Krishna conscious. And our takeaway is Avyartha Kalatvam, which means we should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And always think of Krishna all day long and engage in devotional service to please the Lord. and to free yourself from mundane activities. Haribol. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Bharat Maharaj fall down for the deer and lost his position, devotional service position. So, I just have a comment like for me, for most of my life, I used to attach myself with my country, and when my mom died, I was like thinking for at least a year about and grieving the loss. So, um, so my question or comment is like, when he has to take a birth, how do I ensure that I don't have to take birth and this is my last birth? I don't have to like I mean, how do I engage? Like, if let's say I live for 2 more years in this planet, and if I constantly chant Krishna's name, is that enough? Or it's like I have to take another birth. So how do I guarantee? At least not guarantee, but how do I at least strive to reach that state so that I'm not penalized by the Lord because I had so many attachments in this material world.
Well, that is the main point. It's to dovetail your attachments into Krishna consciousness. So, if you like to eat, you should only eat Krishna prasadam. If you like to dance, you should only dance for Krishna. If you like to sing, you should only sing for Krishna. If you like to uh, study, you should only study Bhagavad Gita. So you have to dovetail all your activities into Krishna consciousness. Do you understand what that means? That means that before you like to study, but you're studying mundane books. But now, as a devotee, you only study Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Previously, you liked to eat all kinds of junk food, but now you only eat Krishna prasadam. This is called dovetailing all your activities in Krishna consciousness. That is the secret, but it's an open secret. It's not kept by a few people. It is offered to as many people as possible to have a life in Krishna consciousness. So you might say, well, I know this, I know that, but I can't follow all of those things. That's because you're not associating enough with devotees. But if you associate with devotees, most of the time or all the time, you will be able to do all the prescribed duties of a devotee. But if you have some association with devotees and at other times association with non-devotees, you'll never develop the what you would call very staunch attachment to being Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. It won't happen because you have association with non-devotees. You have to give up the association of non-devotees and always associate with genuine devotees, chanting, dancing, feasting, hearing, etc. Then we will not be taken down again to mundane people and mundane activities. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and now everything we've heard, we're going to be tested throughout this day to see if we understood it or if we forget it right away. in one ear, out the other. No, we don't want that. We want to capture in our brain everything we heard of all the transcendental statements made in the class today so that we are not disturbed or distracted from determination of practicing Krishna consciousness every minute of the day. Or, in other words, understanding this very simple statement of Yarta Kalatvam. This is the advice of Rupa Goswami. We should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for the rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home, back to Godhead. So our takeaway for today is Avyarta Kalatvam. Use every moment of our lives in rendering devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home, back to Godhead. Well, it cannot be any more, let's say, clear and uh, or any more, let's say, obvious that engaging in devotional service and nothing else is the path to go back to Godhead. This is a secure position for one wanting to return home, back to Godhead. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. It is past 8 o'clock in the morning. We have a full day ahead of us, and let's hope that it's a full day of chanting Hare Krishna and remembering Krishna. The best way to remember Krishna is to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra all day long, not just for 16 rounds, but all day long chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. See how blessed we are. We've been given the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And to chant it 24 hours a day. Then we are free of all negative things and qualified to go back to Godhead. See, eventually, as we get older, all our mundane duties go away. And now we have all day long to chant Hare Krishna. But in the meantime, to work up to that point, we at least chant 16 good rounds every day. It takes at least 2 hours if you chant properly. It could take 10 hours if you don't chant properly. If you chant properly, it shouldn't be more than 2 hours. So we have to set away those 2 hours every day to fully chant our 16 rounds. But 16 is the minimum. The more we become free from mundane obligations, the more time we have to chant Hare Krishna. So, in general, if you go to Vrindavan, you'll see there are devotees chanting all day long. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. They purposely organize their life to have just enough money to go to India and live in Vrindavan and always chant Hare Krishna. But don't forget, even though you're in Vrindavan, you can fall into Maya there also, just as anywhere else in the world. And there are people that go there but engage in nonsense activities, smoking marijuana, having sex, and so forth. So everything depends on who we associate with and how strictly we're going to follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. So the Goswamis who were living in Vrindavan were very strict about their focus on chanting Hare Krishna all day long and eating very moderately and engaging in preaching and also writing scriptures to help others learn to be Krishna conscious. Yeah. Haribol. Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada.